Everyone thinks when they buy night vision, they're gonna do this cool shit that we're doing right now. But I'll show you what you do most of the time. This. This is what you do most of the time. Welcome to a special episode of the Kansas Irregulars channel. Tonight we decided to do something fun, being the 3rd of July, and do some night vision shooting and some weapon light video for you guys.
You're not afraid of the dark, are you?
So we're gonna go through some of the different ones. We're on my personal range, and we'll have to turn around and we'll get some of the different lights going down and what they look like. So to start off with, let's move this guy a little bit over. So starting off with, we'll go to pistol lights and handhelds. So right now this is my Glock 19X with the X300 Ultra, the old one, not the 1000 lumen. So down about 50 yards for comparison, I have targets. As you can see, I have enough to pull it up and see, but not enough for any positive identification at all. And note, I do have some lights in the back just so we can see, but still, when it comes down, after about 10 yards, I lose it. And I don't have enough for a positive identification. So these lights that I have going here are a great example of a photonic barrier and why you can have all the lumens, but you have to have that candela to really push through it. And I should have specified earlier, all these guns are empty. This gun has no mag, nothing in the chamber. It's been cleared before. So trying to show these lights, we will flag quite a bit just to kind of give an up close view, but these guns have been cleared and we are being safe. So moving on, showed in the last one, the concealed carry video, my combat light. As you can see, I honestly have more throw with this than I do on my X300 Ultra.
Yep.
So let's see if I can kind of move around here and get a good video. Gonna shut one of these lights off, try to help it out a little more. Like you can see, I have my berm right there, that's 50 yards. You can start to kind of make out a little more, but it's not perfect. So, with that, I want to show the OG. This right here is your old USGI, been used for 1 billion years, D-cell flashlight. Let's see what type of bear. You can see them jug and about 3 feet in front of you. Great little light to use.
Yeah.
I don't know how warfighters did it back in the day. So now that I got my 3, Denton over here is running an X300 Ultra on his agency, but he has the 1000 lumen version, the same one that I have on my Glocks and some of my others. So if you want, kind of demonstrate.
Clear. All right.
His lens is also dirty though, just for records.
So I mean, it's rough. It almost seems like the EDC light was pushing out. but there is
Yes.
still...
And that also shows, it almost seemed like it didn't have the throw that even my X300 Ultra original is. Just ate a bug. Just to show that sometimes lumens are not always the answer.
Yeah.
This thing only has 500 lumens, but I can see my targets. Denton over here, his has a little bit of carbon on it, but yet he can't push. So if you want to show yours, and now you see mine washes his out.
Yep.
And this is 500 lumens. This is the OG guy. So lumens are not always the answer. And Say Dynamics has always been a good proponent of photonic barriers and candela. So now that we got the pistol lights and all, let's go into some of the rifle versions we got. So to start this off, this is an Airsoft Mark 18 ATF, but I have the OG Surefire M900 Candescent vertical grip. As you can see, I can see the berm, not real well, but I can still see it. But it's kind of pitiful nowadays.
Yeah.
But in 2001, if you were running one of these on your M4 in Afghanistan, you fucked on the first date. So now, going into this Mark 18 Mod 0 here, for purposes I didn't have a spare gun to throw this on, but I have the Surefire 952V TN Millennium. This replaced the original Millennium Scout lights in the Candescent to the LED. I also have on here, like I said just for the video here, the Streamlight ProTech Railed. A lot of people talk about they can't afford a Surefire or Mod Light something, so they go with the Streamlight. So, going for the Surefire here, that's an LED. Is it a lot better than the original M900? Absolutely.
Yep.
And you don't have to worry about your bulbs breaking. This one also has IR. But let's see how the Streamlight compares. As you can see, you have way more spill and it pushes out a lot farther. This is 1,000 lumens right here pushing through this.
Yep.
At the time, this thing was beating out anything that was on the market. As a close-up version, this is the Surefire. This right here is the Streamlight. You notice there's more yellow to the light. It's a warmer color on the Streamlight than it is the Surefire. You will kind of notice that theme. So, coming up to the IAR Concept build that I have, you'll see why here in a bit. I'm running a spare light I had laying around, which is the Surefire Scout Mini M300, the OG guy, not the newer versions. But you notice it still has quite a bit up close. But this guy here, who has about 500 lumens or so, is still pushing out in this small package what the Streamlight is. And it's a smaller package overall. Now getting into it, on my recce build, I am running the Surefire Vampire. The great thing about these is they run an LED IR illuminator as well as a white light. And with the civilian market with lasers, that's kind of a fixing a problem that the government created. So it doesn't do either really well, but as you can see, I still have quite a bit of throw and quite a bit on a underpowered flashlight to say. And I still have my IR capability. So, now that I got these out of the way, I have Denton here. He has the Surefire dual fuel, just the standard dual fuel 1500 lumen with an 18650 battery. So if you want, kind of the same thing. You want to move over a little bit, you're right in the camera.
Right over here?
Yep. As you can see, he has quite a bit of spill coming up here. He has quite a bit and can light this up pretty good. But I want to go on to the next one. The next one here is my pinned 14.5 Black Hawk Down. This is also running a dual fuel. However, I am also running the Mod Light OKW dual fuel head. As you can see, it has a lot of candela.
Yep.
This right here has lit up this entire berm and target.
Yep. And
I could easily identify anything.
yeah, that's the first light we've been able to see the color of the target as well.
Yes. This thing, it doesn't have the lumens, but it's that throw.
Yep.
And I mean, it's like the sun. I can feel heat coming off the front of that light. So, something to think about. You're already spending $260 on a dual fuel. And then, on top of that, if you want the different pressure pads, whatever, that's all extra anyways.
Yep.
So, with this guy, you can turn around, buy this dual fuel head for $250, I think is what I paid for it. And then on top of that, buy a body for $79, and then buy the tail cap you want, and you're in about what a Surefire, or a little more expensive. It's comparable, honestly.
Yeah.
Because first thing most people do, swap out their mounts, swap out their tail caps.
Yep.
Why not just start with the one you want anyways and have an exponentially better light? Ooh, what is that? I think I saw some eyes. One of the little critters is watching us. So, with that, we're probably going to go dark, shut these lights off, and try to do some night vision for you. Hope you guys enjoy. Welcome to the Kansas Irregulars. Here we're doing a little after action report from the night vision we did yesterday. Last night, we did some night vision shooting, which will be spread out through this. This will act as like a regular video. But it was pretty good. We did weapon lights and we did some night vision.
Yep.
And forewarning this, we're not fucking experts. We're not Instructor Zero or some of these others that never miss a fucking target.
Mm-hmm.
We're regular dudes. But at the same point, too, we kind of show when it comes to equipment you're not entirely familiar with. I'm not rich. I only have one PVS 14. Denton over here only has one PVS 14. So we had to do some swapping and all around to hook for the camera footage for this. So, in which case, me used a white Foss, running a green, it's a night and day difference.
It is.
Same thing. Going from a green Foss to a white is a night and day difference. Because you can easily get overstimulated too. Seeing so much out there with the different bombs and everything else and the different color, it adds contrast. It really does make a difference. I didn't think it was that much better. Denton didn't either. I just knew the color-wise, the blue is a less strain on the eyes. So that's why I initially went with it. Just some Google image pictures of what images look like under a white phos versus green phos. But what it doesn't prepare you for is actually operating under it.
Yep.
When you start going to shoot and you pull it up and like with my white phos I can see through my retro.
Mm-hmm.
I can see through the aim point. On Denton's here, I couldn't. Well, that retro doesn't have an illuminator, so you had that problem. Same thing, trying to go off lasers and all that. When you try to use it on even my recce, it was just so dark, and I don't want to have to rely on an illuminator. So there's that. But I mean, it made some good footage.
Yeah.
But that's something to think about. I hear people talk about, oh well, the white phos is not worth the money over the green. That may be so, but don't swap just for the sake of swapping either. If you're used to one of them, that's probably what you ought to stick with. If you can afford to go white phos, absolutely do. Get used to it. Just know, if you go to swap, it's going to mess everything up. Chuck mentioned that being with panos that were white phos in Iraq. And someone asked him, hey man, are those really that much better? I want to see those. And he's like, yeah, they're actually way better. And he's like, I don't know. This is like the Matrix. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And he's like, it would never be the privates or whatever that are like, oh, I want to see that. No. And it's the squad leaders that are like, yo, let me see that. Bullshit. And they drop it on. And Chuck said the reactions were all, son of a bitch.
Yep.
Because it wasn't a son of a bitch as in how good it is. It's son of a bitch as the realization that your government has this technology but doesn't trust you, the basic line grunt, with it. So that's something to keep in mind. When I can see under overhangs 200 yards away for a barn, that's incredible. Yeah. And even though I talk up white phos and talk down green phos, both are still a superpower like none other to see in the dark. I mean, think about it. Even as hard a time I had using Denton's green phos night vision, which was any time I was shooting and you saw everything in the footage in white phos, that's still better than what anyone else without it has. It was pitch black. We had a little bit of overcast that last night until a little later when the stars came.
Guys got to draw them in.
Draw them in. They cannot see you. We have night vision.
They don't.
Anyone else would have been stuck inside or bed down or using bright ass flashlights giving away your position. So it's not bad as in you shouldn't get it, because it's a game changer regardless.
It is.
But just know, if you start with one, don't just swap because you're swapping. go, if you can, and the rule I was always taught, go the highest grade you can afford. I could turn around, at the time, I could have bought an RNVG with the tubes that Denton has, but I didn't. I wanted white phos, and I had heard if you're not buying L3 unfilmed white phos, you're wasting your money. So I bought a PVS 14, a single tube, in the highest grade tube because Steele Industries, I'll try to add them as a company, lets you hand select your tube. They also do a ready ship option. So unlike TNVC, which I was going to buy, that's why I had saved the amount of money that I did, was they offered things like multicam housings and everything else. However, it was a 26-week wait.
Yeah.
Well, Denton here asked Steve Fisher at Sentinel Concepts about it, and he recommended Steele Industries. So he gave him a shot. He bought a tube ready to ship, and he got it the next day. They overnighted it.
Yep.
For free. I turned around, I called them, and explained what I wanted, and they said, yeah, that's fine. Turn around, they got the information I wanted roughly on the tube, which was 72 line pairs, my EBI I wanted down, my SNR, all the other little things. There's all sorts of YouTube videos that can go way deeper into what all that means than I could ever hope to explain.
Yeah.
So I kind of gave that spec, and they told me when we get the tubes in and start assembling, because they do a check to find out what all the specs are. And unlike a lot of these others, Steele Industries, when they put their ready to ship, they put all the specs. So you can hand select of all their ready to ship what you're after. And it has the part number on it that you click and hit buy, and it goes to you. Mm-hmm. So that's the exact tube you're buying. And it also, they put up pictures for any imperfections too.
A bunch of them too.
Yes. So Steele Industries I can't give high enough praise for. But I turn around and I paid $4,300 for my white phos tube. If I would have spent a little more, I could have got the ones that Denton has. But that extra money that I was going to buy with the tube Denton has in an RNVG, so dual tube, yep, I used to buy my mount.
Yep. And
that's been another fiasco.
Yep.
I'm in like 3 different J-arms, an adapter plate. I have a Rhino mount that I don't use. I literally got it because it was at the surplus store for 20 bucks. And was still something because my mount was back ordered. And I went with the Wilcox G24, I think is what it is. G24. The new one, which is basically the 22L that they redesignated. So I run that, and I've run the Wilcox original Gen 1 J-arm. I ran an adapter plate to a PVS 7 bayonet style from Wilcox. And then I have their new push button Wilcox, which is the one I currently run. So there's many different options, but I use that extra money to buy $800 in mounts and the bump helmet that I use for it.
And that's a big thing. It's,
yeah.
You know, your tubes are going to cost however much, but you still have to factor in everything else.
Yep.
The mounts, the helmet, what hearing pro you're running right now. Hopefully the right hearing pro is going to fit underneath the bump helmet or whatever.
Whether or not you want a direct mount, yep, or like me and Denton do, we go underneath.
Yep.
The way I set my pads, I leave that space in the center so it's not crushing, yep, my headband down into my head. However, I also want to try ops cores and be able to hard mount them. So there's hundreds of different options, but it's something you need to research. You're not going to turn around and be like, I'm buying night vision. You buy your tube, and then you're like, now what? Yeah. Now you have an expensive monocle or binos chilling because you haven't done any research on what you need.
It all needs to be set and ready to go before you even decide to start buying stuff. Because, I mean, my tubes were 28.
Yep.
And the laser, the helmet, the mounting system is going to cost that much.
Yep. And then it also comes down to weight. Yep. I mean, your laser, I like because the illuminator is better. It's an LED base rather than laser base like all these others. Mm-hmm. And because the government. Yeah. But you can't turn around and have over a certain wattage for IR because the FDA says it's hazardous to your health. Yeah. Well, you know what else is hazardous? The bullets I'm using that laser to send. Do you want to risk cancer from this IR illuminator that's using a laser? Or instant lead poisoning? I mean, that's like turning around and saying, hey, the filter in that cigarette is causing cancer.
Yeah.
Well, what about the rest of the fucking cigarette?
Yeah.
Well, it does too, but we're not worried about that. We're worried about the actual filter. So, that's something to think about. So, to me, I knew I needed a flashlight regardless. Mm-hmm. I went with the Surefire IR Vampire. Denton here, he's lucky where he has a good illuminator on his D-ball, D2. He can run a mod light. That mod light that I had in this with the light video you'll see, which is a dual fuel that I had laying around that I threw a mod light head on. I'll probably order 2 more mod light bodies because I have 2 dual fuel heads just chilling. Mm-hmm. And put the mod light on a dedicated one. But Denton here can run that. I can't. I would have 2 flashlights and a laser. Well, why? I turn around. I also just turn my head either off or to IR when I know it's going to get dark because I don't want an ND light either. Nope. But you can also ND IR light. So that is something to also think about as well. Yep. Because as I show in that, if I can see it under night vision, anyone else with night vision can see it.
Eyes open. I'm gonna paint these guys with the infrared so we're all on the same page. Everybody got this guy?
Roger.
Yeah, I got him.
This guy?
Got him. Got him.
This guy?
Got him.
Got him.
How about that guy?
So you can't just run around like you're in Afghanistan and no one else has night vision and just blast all the IR light. You do have to take that stuff into account. Grantham does a good video on it when him, admin, and Blue Jean operator and Charlie Likes Cox and some of these others went airsofting for a 48-hour event, which was a sweet event. I wish I could have gone. But that's something to think about. That everything, it's not just the night vision. It's the night vision, the mount, the J-arm, the mounting surface, whether it be a helmet, a skull crusher, whatever. I don't recommend going on a weapon-based. Then you got to get enablers. You could run a red dot. Well, if so, you probably need a higher mount, either a 193 or a 204 skyscraper. Mm-hmm. You can run lights, laser, and all that, your enablers. the one thing I forgot, nuclear bright. So, with this, my Mark 18, this Aimpoint T2 has night vision settings. So I can run this thing pretty well with just an Aimpoint. Under night vision. Very little to it, and I also have my laser. The thing is, when it comes to lasers and illuminators, if anyone else, like say how Denton has the camera with his night vision on it. If I am in a tree line and we're going and I decide I'm going to light something up, anyone else with an IR seeking device like night vision, even cheap $200 night vision, will still pick it up, and everyone now knows where the hell you're at. Same with the laser. It's easy, especially with the white boss I'm running, to trace that laser back to its origin. I mean, I'm not sure how well it's picking up on the camera, but I can see, even on this civilian model, the beam running straight back to my device. So your lights, they make dedicated IR lights. LED also can be seen visibly. However, with that said, if you're able to see someone shine an IR light with the naked eye, it means he's aiming at you. So take that into account, that you're like, I can see that. You're probably about to get canoed in about a millisecond.
Yeah. Pressure pads too.
Yes, pressure pad. It's easy to accidentally smack a pressure pad, especially if you have a white light that's not IR and a laser. You smack a pressure pad, wham, you just sent all that white light. So not only can anyone with night vision see you like a glowing road flare, anyone with the naked eye can now see it. So that's something to take into account.
Yeah, there's a lot that you put in perspective, because I mean, how many times do we look at planes in the air and then open up the other eye and you can't even see the light from the plane at all?
Yeah.
That's just that's what it is. I mean, but
same thing when it comes to glass. I mean, you saw last night with your agency with the 509T.
Mm-hmm.
The 509T has two lenses. It's an enclosed emitter and a great optic, but you have two lenses, so now it's darkened your vision. I've shot my Glock 17 with an RMR single pane of glass, and when you pull it up, you just see a dot floating in space.
Yep.
You don't even see the glass or the housing. So now you're taking light away that you need. And like us, we run just standard weapon lights. They make vampires for pistol, but when we're running just regular white light, now you've lost any aiming ability because you can't see it. You pull it up, you can't see.
The RMR, I can see so much better, but with I don't know if it's because of the enclosed emitter. Like I have to like I can see him, and then I have to know where he's at.
Yeah, I wish I would have brought my Glock 17 down with RMR. Because that's something you have to take into account, is the more glass you have, the more it kind of darkens your vision.
I'm just shooting off of I can see him, and then I come up, and then I can't even see the fucking. I can see roughly the outline.
That's another thing. Once you get close, you lose clarity. It starts to blur. You have to focus these things. So it's great. You can see it. You may even see it on the video or whatever. But then you're looking down at a table and you're kind of going off feel because you can't see what it is that's messing with it or whatever. Because it's blurry now. You would have to hand focus it to sharpen it, to do whatever, and then look up and then refocus it back to where you are. Well, most people don't. They either flip it up and hit a white light, or they just kind of go off feel. That's why a lot of guys talk about memorizing where all your shit is on all your kit. So, just some stuff to think about. What are some of your thoughts for last night's shoot?
Oh, it was a great time. It really it opens your eyes up. I mean, before we were kind of against this to begin with.
Yeah, because we knew what was going to happen.
And then everything got crazy, and then I was like, I want to take this to the next level, and kind of just cut all the fat out of everything that I had. I didn't need 9,000 rifles. I didn't need 9,000 handguns. I had a bunch of extra gear that I could take a hit on, help someone else out, and then next thing you know, I've got enough money just to invest in this asset, and it was 100% worth it.
Yeah, and really, I think it was John Meyer talking to Jocko.
Yeah.
When they talked about, oh, would you wear body armor, being the latest and greatest gear? And they said no, it would have weighed too much in the jungle, it was too bulky, whatever. And he said, however, we would have sold our own mothers to the Viet Cong for some of this night vision.
Yeah.
And you're like, ooh, wait a second.
Mm-hmm.
If it would have made that much of a difference, because they had night vision, they had the Starlight, but the Starlight was not good in the slightest. That was literally Gen 1 night vision.
Yeah.
But to turn around and know it's that much of a game changer, why are we crippling ourselves by not? Yeah. Or turning around and being like, well, I bought my night vision. Well, what is it? It's an ATN scope that I bought at the gun shop for $300. The problem is you're now getting into the digital night vision versus analog.
Yep.
Which, as much as I hate T-Rex Arms, they do a good video on that. And it's his brother, so I like his videos. But they do a really good video on digital versus analog night vision, what it is, why, and the thing that really kills it, it's kind of the elephant in the room, latency. You have a video that I'm going to try to clip. If not, I will turn around and put it in with the timestamp. Mm-hmm. And it's a primary and secondary, and I know exactly where it's at. Where Chuck talks about you have all these tanks running thermal and night vision imagery and all this other, but yet dudes are still can't get two-tube night vision. Fuckers went Sante Raid 1970 with PVS 5s, dual tube night vision, but yet nowadays you can't have dual tubes and decent night vision. And one of the guys made a comment about, well, they have the PVS 14. He's like, all right, let me line up every tanker and take an ice pick and poke one of their fucking eyes out so they can know what it's like to live under one eye. And it's a great video, and he also talks about latency, which is you're turning, and there's that millisecond gap that it's catching up to you. You are literally moving faster than the camera, and that can be deadly. And it also makes you nauseous because there's a lag. So, with that, I think I'm good. Are you? Any other points you want to make before we close this down?
Not all white lights are equal.
Yeah.
It's definitely for maybe a different type of video, but with the night vision thing, I think that's it. I mean, if there's any random questions, we can obviously answer to the best of our abilities. And a lot of this and all of our opinions with this is coming off of people who have been there and done that, with the whole John Myers thing, and then, you know, Steve Fisher saying, if you don't have night vision, you should probably get some. It's one of those where it's like, okay, Steve, I'll do that.
Yeah.
But
if you're not looking at night vision right now, don't bother. And it's like, add to cart.
Yep.
And then turning around and asking, for civilian lasers, what do you recommend?
Yep.
It's simple. These guys are out here.
Yep.
Press Check Consulting, Sentinel Concepts, Mocha Bear Actual, Sage Dynamics.
Charlie likes cock.
Charlie likes cock. Grantham, I've even asked questions before on his Instagram. Fisher, he runs live feeds a lot of times to where you can go on and ask him a question. He'll just be shooting the shit with all his followers, and he'll try to answer it. Even though we have asked to show the swords, and
Still doesn't want to
he still hasn't shown. We always get, no, we're not dragging those out today. And it's like, wait, we didn't know you had any. We were fishing.
That guy has everything under the sun.
Yes, he does. They call him the Yeti.
And even on Patreon, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Chuck. Chuck with Press Check Consulting. He doesn't go and do a lot social media wise, but his followers are devoted, and they will pretty much fucking end you if you fuck with this guy. They are that devoted to him. I myself follow him on Patreon. Dude, his lowest tier is $1. You mean to tell me you can't afford $1 a fucking month?
Yeah.
If you're that much, and I know I'm going to probably irritate someone, if you're that much of a fucking broke bitch that you can't afford $1 a month, you should probably look at not getting into prepping. Because if you can't afford that $1 a month minimum,
I mean, just
you're beyond gone.
The entertainment on top of the money you're going to save from him answering a question about something that you need to know the answer to.
Exactly.
Is
and it's like, I know damn well you'll have these motherfuckers out here spend $7, $8 on a fucking cup of coffee. But yet you talk about it, it's like, hey, this guy has a Patreon, he's super serious, 26 years special operations, and he's a prepper too.
Yeah.
And you just ask him any question under the sun you want to know. I've had people ask him what type of fucking underwear he likes when operating. And he'll answer it and explain why.
Yeah. And it might take him 40 minutes just to answer an underwear question. And you're like, okay, I need to do more research here.
I did. I asked him about cold weather gear, kind of set my parameters. And I knew immediately, he's like, ooh.
You got excited.
You guys better sit down for this one. This is going to be a long one. And then he got in, he's like, all right, guys, I think I'm going to have to make a part 2 to this live feed, because each of his lives are like 4 hours on his Patreon. Mm-hmm. But when he's like, I think we're going to have to do a part 2 because I'm an hour 45 minutes in and I've only answered 3 questions.
Yep.
Because they were one, like I asked, what type of weather gear should I be looking for? Not necessarily what do I need to buy, but what do I need to look for in weather gear? And he brought up tweed, he brought up Gore-Tex, he brought up merino wool, he brought up all this other big poof and down feather. He brought the whole thing out, and he showed a lot of them and explained processes of off-gassing and hypothermia and all that. So, really, the information you get from some of these guys is going to save you money.
Yep.
But you can't be the ostrich with your head in the sand. Be like, well, I saw a Facebook ad, I'm going to try it. You can, but you need to fully accept that it may be straight pile of dog shit. And too many people try to justify their purchases by whatever. No, we've all bought dog shit at some point to try it.
Yep.
Just to see if it fits that niche. But at the end of the day, if I turn around talking to Dent and he's like, wow, I bought the, and you're like, dude, that's straight trash. You need to look at this. And he'll, oh yeah, you're right, I just wanted to see if it fit a goal. Same thing, he said it to me several times. Dude, why'd you do this? Well, I had this specific purpose that I was trying to go for, and it didn't quite do what I needed. And then you chalk it up. Personally, like all the Condor, I don't know any of the new shit,
Yeah.
but none of their Molly was to the actual spec. So nothing lined up the way it should have been. Well, when you're trying to mount shit to a backing or a panel or whatever, and it doesn't line up to even weave it the way it's supposed to be, well, it's kind of trash. It was a great idea, but the execution failed.
Yep.
So the fact that you can ask these questions, and these people are willing to fucking answer them.
Yeah, they enjoy doing it.
Yeah. I mean, Fisher's been teaching people how to shoot since like the fucking 90s. Steve Fisher did Magpul Dynamics.
Yep.
Back when the dynamic carbine fucking videos were out. Chuck, he graduated Ranger School the year I was born. In 91. You had Blowers. He just retired from SWAT. In like, was it Washington, I think? Like Seattle-ish area. He just retired from that. And he goes around teaching law enforcement officers how to shoot, how to use shields, how to use all this other. Anything you're after, information-wise, they can give you.
Yeah.
All you got to do is swallow your pride and ask.
It's better than us 5, 6, 7 years ago of having to listen to 3-hour-long videos and then be like, wait, what did he say? And then go back, listen to it again, go back, listen to it again, and be like, ah, I see what he's doing now.
Yeah.
And then 5 years later down the road, they make a specific video on like that 3-minute subject. You're like, man, I had to sit through 4 hours just to listen to that one thing.
Yep. Well, look at, there was one, people talking about Surefire lights, breaking the bezels. Well, then Surefire put that a little bit of aggressiveness on their bezel, their light,
Yeah.
for strikes. Well, then look at Mod Light, the new one. They had issues because they didn't foresee, for some reason, people taking their weapon light and doing strikes on people because their Mod Light head is sticking out farther than the Glock 19 by 2 inches.
Yep.
They didn't foresee people trying to break windows out with the bezel of their flashlight, and the mounting bracket that holds it on is plastic.
Yep.
So people were shearing that off. They didn't foresee that. Well, people have been talking about doing that for years. So it's not even just the community itself not paying attention. Sometimes it can be companies themselves.
Oh, yeah.
So it is one of those things that we hound on, but it's because we want to save people from making the same mistakes that we've made.
Yep.
As Pat McNamara would say, to break that cycle of institutionalized inbreeding. You see it all the time. People, oh, I'm going to buy this trash. Well, why? Well, it's going to get me to whatever. Well, we've seen it 100 times. It never happens.
Yep.
I have it, I'm going to run it, whatever. It takes a critical failure to where they're like, well, maybe I need to look at something.
Yeah, or I mean, there's one person that in particular, he wanted to start getting into guns, and he was like, what should I do? And then, we listed it out, and he did it verbatim, and then he's shooting his gun, he's having a bunch of time at some range or whatever, and then some guy was shooting next to him, and he wanted to shoot the other person's gun, and he picked it up, sent a couple of rounds down range, and said, what the hell is this? Mm-hmm. And he's just like, it was just that eye-opener moment from, like, having something that's, like, made to do work, and then having a wish rifle, and he's like, that thing was trash. I mean, if you start out shooting a Geisley trigger, and you go to a mil-spec trigger from Wish, there's a huge difference there.
Yes, absolutely there is.
Yeah, you start out with a $1,200 LPVO, and then you use some dude's airsoft LPVO. It's a completely different ballgame.
Yeah, and if you think we're lying, go to any optic on Amazon and look at the questions. Yeah. And almost all of them will say, can this work on a 5.56? Can this work on a 308? And I'm sitting here like, I don't even want it to work on an airsoft gun.
I mean, we just got done doing some shooting like last week, and I took a look through someone's glass, and I'm like, oof, should have waited. Yep. You should have saved more money, because it's like, you dial into 6, and you're like, everything's fuzzy, and you're trying to get everything adjusted, and it just doesn't want to go.
Yeah, it looks like a fucking petri dish.
Yep. It's like, dude, I would have waited another year. I just would have had that thing with no sights or whatever, and just waited until I had the money to buy something that was better. Or
even ask. I had LPVO laying around. I have red dots laying around.
Yeah. I can't tell you how long. I mean, at one point in time, I had 2 rifles that had no optic on it, just because I was waiting for my income to catch up so I could buy something.
The one longest time, I gave you that set of irons to throw on it, so at least had something.
Yeah. Yep.
Were they even the best irons? No. But they were something you could line up and send rounds down range, rather than a 1913 rail. But nowadays, if one of my buddies is like, hey, and a buddy I trust, not just someone who's kind of an acquaintance, by the way. Yeah. I don't recommend being like, I know this guy just from work. I'm going to give him my $800 red dot that's sitting to try, because he told me he's going to go with a red dot like it. No, that fucker's gone forever. But to turn around, and I'm talking close friends. And one of the things for this Vietnam series is going to be close people, and why you can't just trust anyone. If they say you're on your side, oh, that's great. And then it's not always the case. So that'll be later in the Vietnam series as well. This kind of ties in because really Vietnam was the one that night vision really came to be with the Starlight. So with that, I think I'm good.
I'm good.
You're good. We're going to wrap this up. Got a lot of editing to do. Throw all the night vision clips in. And we hope you guys enjoy. This is the infantry automatic rifle. Not the M27 HK416, but a concept for fire suppression, continuity fire, and a gunner's spot. I think she ran. This right here serves a direct point, and that is to keep people's heads down so people can move on an objective. That's its sole purpose. With these D60s, it sure does a lot to help keep that down. You're not just burning through 30s. But you can have 30s as a backup.